In this short demonstration video, I will show you how to take a Dell Thin client running ThinOS 9 and upgrade it to ThinOS 10. It's important to note that all the actions performed in this video can be centrally pushed through the WMS console. No action at the endpoint is required. However, for demonstration purposes in the video today, you'll see that I'll be switching back screens from the WMS console to the Thin client so you can see the actions as I performed on the endpoint. It's also important to note that before I start the upgrade process, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to migrate our ThinOS policies to ThinOS 10 policies so that after the device has been upgraded, it'll be able to read policies and continue to work. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the first step, I'm going to go ahead and log in to my WMS console. Once I've logged into the WMS console, let's look at the device that we're going to target for the upgrade today. We're going to pick one of the systems in my lab. It's this Dell Optiplex 3000 Thin client running Dell ThinOS 2411. It's in the group Citrix. So let's go ahead and look at the policy and so we can see what's being applied to the device. So we'll find the policy. You can see a fairly basic policy, some regional settings. I've got the certificates needed for my Citrix connection, my broker settings, the domain setting, personalization, set some wallpaper, set a video file for the screensaver, set my resolution. I set the firmware to 2411, the CWA app, a couple things on the services for remote shadow, and then some BIOS settings to change the password. So some fairly, again, basic settings that you would expect on a ThinOS 9 device that's connecting to a Citrix server. You will notice that all of the policies are ThinOS 9. There are no ThinOS 10 specific policies. What we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go up one level so I get all the settings I need, and I'm going to go ahead and import policies, and I'm going to choose to take ThinOS 10 policies. So I'm going to create ThinOS 10 policies from my existing 9 policies, including the sub policies. If you have not previously migrated any ThinOS 9 policies to ThinOS 10 policies, you should see a link in WMS that allows you to go directly to the migration page. However, if you've previously created a migration, you can always do the steps like we previously showed and use the Import Policies button. So now as I go back and look at the same group that I was in before, so I'm going to scroll down to my Citrix group so I can see everything that's applied. And you'll see not only do I have my ThinOS 9 policies, I also have some ThinOS 10 policies for those devices. You can see they imported pretty much the same settings. They're going to be applicable inside of there, the login experience. The only one that's a little bit different is you can see the firmware section. It's going to make sure that it does the CWA package that's applicable to ThinOS 10. It's not going to do the ThinOS 9 policy, and it's also not going to enforce the ThinOS 9 firmware version. It is important to understand that ThinOS 10 devices have backward compatibility and the ability to read a ThinOS 9 policy if a ThinOS 10 policy is not available. However, the use case for this is primarily for when devices are shipped from the Dell factory, including the associated required packages. Whenever you're doing an upgrade, like we're demonstrating in this video, it is highly recommended that you either manually create ThinOS 10 policies or migrate them based on the steps that were shown. So let's look at the endpoint. Before we get started, we just want to confirm again, running ThinOS 2411. Also, I want to go into the packages under System Tools and show you that this device has a number of packages installed. And it is important to note that as I'm upgrading the system, it will be overwriting the operating system, so the existing packages will need to be installed again. If I look at my device, let's go. I could do this to a group, but I'm going to choose today for the upgrade, going to use a device exception, and I'm going to just upgrade one device. This is a great way to test a single device in my environment. So I look at the existing policy under firmware, and I go to the OS firmware, and I can see right now it's using the 2411. I'm going to select that to the latest ThinOS 10 firmware that's available on this system. If you have WMS in the cloud, it would be uploaded for you. And you can see there back on the endpoint, the little arrow that immediately came up. So since I do have live update enabled on the system, which is the default setting, pretty much immediately after I make the change, it starts pushing it down. Now, there's no interruption of the user, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and log in here. So the user can continue to work. I'll actually make a connection into a Citrix desktop, and you can see that's working all the time in the background. That ThinOS 10 package is being downloaded to the system. So if you have live update on and there happens to be users on the system, it would download in the background and then later be given the option to do that. Of course, you might want to schedule this for the evening. But now that I've logged out, let's just wait for it to download the rest of the way. And then once that package is downloaded, you'll see the interaction. Again, this is the default configuration. I could change some settings inside of this on how I wanted to interact with the user, maybe not give them the choice. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say maybe they were working when it downloaded and they could do it on the next reboot. For the demonstration today, let's go ahead and just click on Update Now. Also, if no one is present, you can see that the 2-minute warning would just go ahead and click down and then the upgrade would begin. So if no one was on the system and we use these settings, it would go ahead and start the upgrade process. So it went ahead and upgraded and now it's rebooting and my ThinOS 10 is installing on the system. It should take about 10 minutes. There's a lot of variables based on your network speed and things like that. I did, for the purpose of this video, I made it go through a little bit quicker than what had happened in my lab. But once that's done, it'll go ahead and count down and restart. And it'll do at least one reboot, possibly 2 reboots on the system after it's installed as it initializes ThinOS 10 for the first time. So it goes in here, it did the network connection, and then it starts a second reboot and boots the device. Again, this is that OptiPlex 3000 Thin client that had upgraded from ThinOS 9 2411. And at this point, we'll go ahead and check it. I can see it looks a little bit different. Looks like ThinOS 10, but let's just go ahead and connect. One thing you'll notice, it's having trouble making that same connection, and that's because the package is not there, the CWA, Citrix Workspace app. You can see though there, it is ThinOS 10. So that part is done. And also, let's just go ahead and confirm what I was looking there before. Let's look at the packages on the system. And as I noted before, just because the upgrade is done, the packages are not there on the systems. However, we did tell it in the policy, if you remember, to go ahead and install the CWA. So once the system checks in, there it goes, it checked in, and now you can see it checked in. It got the wallpaper that I pushed to this device, and also you see the arrow as it's beginning to download the Citrix Workspace app. And once it's done, which is done there, I get the same pieces. So the app is not there, but it is saying, yes, I want to go ahead and install that. And again, if no one was at the system, this would all be happening. There's no interaction needed. It would do the 2-minute countdown and then begin. Since I was here, I hit Update Now, and the system has begun to upgrade. Again, this package update should be really, really quick. Once it's done, it gives a 10-second countdown, and I'll go ahead and the system will automatically reboot and come up. And this time, it'll now be upgraded to ThinOS 10, and it will also have the package that it needs to connect. So let's see as it connects. Apply my WMS server policy to the system, again the custom background, and now it's ready to log in. Let's just confirm that. We'll do a quick test to log into my Citrix environment. CWA starts. I've got a 2020 server desktop. I'll connect and make the connection there and log in. Looks the same really, whether I'm connecting from a ThinOS 9 or a ThinOS 10 to my desktop. Go ahead and log out of there. And then I'll go ahead and log out of the Thin client, and it brings me back here. And then just once again showing here that it's ThinOS 10, and then also the package that we needed to install. So the 2411 CWA package is successfully installed on the system. Looking back at the WMS console, You can see here the device reports it's running ThinOS 10. Thank you for watching this video today. Hopefully you found it useful. For more information on ThinOS 9 or ThinOS 10, including the upgrade process, or some of the new features like the optional commercial browser available in ThinOS 10, please visit the Dell support page. Thank you and have a great day.